All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the really fascinating story of modern India. You've got a nation that's basically performing this incredible balancing act. On one side, you have these huge geopolitical tensions and some really tough challenges at home. But on the other side, we're seeing amazing breakthroughs in science, education, and the economy. So let's just jump right into the friction. And we're starting right in the middle of it. This this is a fiery statement from former US President Donald Trump, and it really sets the stage. It's just one piece of a much bigger wave of criticism that's been aimed at India's foreign policy. We're talking about everything from its relationship with Russia, its place in the BRICS economic group, and what he calls these obnoxious trade barriers. This is the high-stakes conflict we're digging into today. So let's break down what this international friction actually looks like. The heart of it, really, is a trade battle. The U.S. has announced this pretty hefty 25% tariff on Indian imports, and that move is making things way more complicated for an already tricky effort to get a new trade deal done. Okay, so if you're looking at it from the U.S. side, these tariffs are basically a pressure tactic. They're coming out of a lot of frustration over how the trade talks have been going. But India is pushing back, and here's their side of the story. A think tank, the Global Trade Research Initiative, has pointed out that India's tariffs are totally compliant with World Trade Organization rules. And as for the Russian oil imports, they argue it was a move they had to make to get a handle on soaring inflation back home. Now, at first glance, India's 25% base tariff actually looks pretty competitive. It's right in line with what you see in places like Vietnam and China. But the real danger here isn't that base rate. Nope. It's the potential for extra penalties, things slapped on top for Russian oil or steel. That's what could push India's actual tariff rate way, way past its competitors and just erase its economic edge.
But here's the thing. While all that tension is brewing on the trade front, a totally different story of incredible collaboration is happening. So let's switch gears completely. We're going from a story of conflict to one of major scientific breakthrough between the very same two countries. Everybody, meet NISAR. That stands for the NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar Satellite. This is a huge deal, a genuine landmark project that's kicking off a whole new era in the India-US space partnership. It is literally the world's first satellite to pack two different radar frequencies, that's NASA's L-band and ISRO's S-band, into one unbelievably powerful eye in the sky. And the scale of this collaboration? It is just immense. The joint investment is over $1.5 billion. Think about that. That's a massive international commitment of money and trust, all for a single scientific mission.
And all that investment buys some incredible efficiency. This satellite is going to scan pretty much the entire Earth's land and ice surfaces every 12 days. That creates this revolutionary, non-stop stream of data that we can use to monitor our planet like never before. It's going to do all of this from an amazing vantage point, 747 kilometers above us. It'll be in what's called a polar orbit, which gives it this unique, consistent view of the Earth, day and night, no matter what the weather is like down here.
So what's the bottom line? What does this thing actually do for us? Well, NISAR can spot changes on the Earth's surface that are as small as a centimeter. That means it can literally watch glaciers flowing. It can track deforestation in real time. It can see the ground sinking in big cities. And it can give us absolutely critical data for managing natural disasters, like earthquakes and floods.
Okay, so let's take this lens we've been using, this idea of tension versus breakthrough, and bring it back home. Let's see how these same forces are playing out within India itself. This number, it's a really stark reminder of the immense pressure on India's public healthcare system. At the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi, which is one of the most prestigious hospitals, the general waiting period for a planned surgery can be up to 2 years. That's all because of an overwhelming number of patients. That is a serious point of tension. But then, at the very same time, you see these breakthroughs that are designed to fix these kinds of systemic problems. India is about to build its first ever Hindi medium MBBS college, a medical school in Jabalpur. This is a massive step. It's all about making medical education more accessible and just breaking down language barriers for people who want to become doctors.
And that tension pops up in the democratic process itself. Over in the state of Bihar, there's a voter list revision going on that requires documents, like a birth certificate or a passport, that millions of citizens just don't have. This has raised some very serious concerns that over 6.5 million people could actually be at risk of losing their right to vote. And on the flip side, you have these huge long-term breakthroughs. As India marks 5 years of its national education policy, it's a good reminder of the massive structural reforms that are happening. One of the biggest changes is bringing 3 to 6-year-olds into the formal school system. The goal here is to provide fair, equitable early childhood education, which is the foundation for all future learning. So you've got all these dynamics, both internal and external. What does the rest of the world think about all this? How is India's report card looking on the global stage?
This phrase, right here from the International Monetary Fund's latest report, it just perfectly captures the global mood. The world economy is showing some resilience, yeah, but it's fragile, it's tenuous, and it's facing a ton of uncertainty from trade wars and other risks. This is the tightrope that India is walking every single day.
And this chart just brilliantly illustrates why India really stands out right now. So while the global economy is expected to grow at around 3% and the US at just 1.2%, India is forecast to grow at a massive 6.4%. I mean, despite all the global headwinds and all the internal challenges, the IMF has called India the single brightest spot in the entire world economy. So we end up right back where we started, with this central question. India is truly a nation of huge contrasts. It's navigating trade disputes while it's launching satellites with its rivals. It's tackling domestic crises while it's achieving this incredible growth. The big question is whether those breakthroughs can continue to outpace the tensions. And that story, well, it's still being written.